My journey started right around Christmas time. I was home on vacation, and I got the idea to build my own AR platforms. I've never been much into guns, but I tend to get on projects or get these ideas, and I go full throttle with them. So I did a lot of research and found out you could make jigs and or get a jig and mill it out yourself, and I was very interested in that. I'm kind of a hands-on person and like to work with tools, and I really like the challenge. So I ordered my jig right after Christmas. One of the most grueling parts was the wait. Of course, they were very popular. I ended up getting mine the last or second to the last week of March. So I got it home or got it in the mail. Very excited, of course, after you've waited so long, and I unboxed it. And the first thing I noticed right off the bat is how heavy everything was. The aluminum in the jig is very heavy. The whole box was heavy when you got it from the package deliverer. So unboxed everything. Everything looked like it was built super heavy. A little intimidating with all the different parts, but I had read through the instructions ahead of time and had them electronically, so I was pretty familiar with what I needed to do, or at least the basics of it. So I put the jig together and was very stout before I did any milling. I had my lower in there and saw everything was very firm in there. So first experience getting it out of the box and getting everything set up, I was floored by how heavy duty this thing was and how overbuilt everything was. A couple of the items I picked up to start my builds or to mill out my lowers. I got this vise, picked it up, a low profile vise, definitely was strong enough to hold everything. It had several adjustments left to right and forward and out. It really helped hold them in, and I could get a good angle where I could get the drill in and then use the router out in the open. I also bought some Tap Magic too. Some aluminum cutting fluid seemed to really help in both the drill applications and the router applications, and a little squirt can to put it in as I put it on. So the aluminum filings, they get everywhere. It was the vacuum attachment on the jig was easily hooked up when it was on the vise, and that really cut down on the amount of filings in there. All in all, this system worked really well to mill out my lowers. Had a nice sunny day a couple days after receiving the jig and putting it together and test fitting everything, and I really wanted to try it out. So in the morning, I started the milling process. I had the initial hole drilled through. To me, that was the hardest part. It took me a little while to do that. I didn't press really hard on my cordless drill to do it, but it went flawlessly. Got the hole through, and then this was my first pass. A couple passes after milling this out, my son, he's really excited about guns, was in school, and he had been kind of skeptical how this process was going to work. So this is after I'd made a couple passes. I sent this to him, just showing him how awesome this thing was, and I was floored. This thing was perfect, and I could see it wasn't going to take a lot of time, and it was going to be pretty easy. Here was the finished results of my first lower. It turned out absolutely flawless. This is the one, of course, the first one you're always going to probably wish you'd done a little better job. Other than put a little nick at the top where I got over anxious with taking the router out before turning it off. It was flawless. The trigger hole was exceptional. The hole for the safety and the takedown pins, everything looked like it was a lower I had seen that you could buy in the store. So my first impression doing the first one was absolutely stellar. Here are three of the four lowers that I did. I end up doing three different calibers. Starting with this one here, I have this one mated to a 5.56 upper. And when I milled this out, the very first one, I was just amazed with the results. I learned something on all four of them. This one's probably the one that I could have done a better job on, but this was my first time milling anything, and I've always been around tools and used them, was comfortable with them. So, but it was a big undertaking, not knowing what to expect and seeing that all that aluminum in there that needed to come out, and then wondering, are the holes going to line up? Is everything going to work out perfect? But after this first one, I rushed in and started putting things together. Trigger pins went in easy, hammer pins, all that went together very nicely. Takedown pins both worked very well on all of them I did. The biggest thing I worried about was the safety on these. That's a big hole, and worried if it was out of line, would the safety be hard to move?
and all four of them were very, very good. I didn't have any problem with any of them. So the results, I was floored by it, and I really learned a lot about how to put a gun together and how an AR works and how the system all works. So to me, that was the most fun thing about doing all this, is just learning the operation and the satisfaction of seeing something going from start to finish. This burnt bronze lower I've got here, I had this on a 300 blackout upper. Did a couple different things on this one. The big thing I did with this one, I put a push button safety on it. I really like that, and that one I was really worried about the holes being lined up, and that push button safety in this works flawless. So this I had end up having three different lowers from three different companies, and all three of them milled out great. All the parts went together great. So just showed the versatility with the jig. You know, you could make any lower you bought work out perfect. So I was very excited to do that one. I got a little antsy with the router on this one, and I put a nick when I was pulling it out before it stopped. Other than that, this one was absolutely perfect. There wasn't a blemish or anything on it, so very awesome. This one I have mated to a 7.62 upper, and this was the last lower I finished. Absolutely perfect. Not a thing out of place on this one. Everything's tight. Everything works really well with it. So the jig was absolutely flawless in making all these work together. And once again, I just learned so much about it and was very happy I undertook this project.